we'd like to ask the province to basically treat the licensing of these shops in the same way as they treat alcohol licensing, which they're not doing at the moment. That seems to me as a no-brainer. And that will give us more say to make sure there's not such clustering. I mean, there is one stretch on Queen East where there's 7 cannabis shops. You wouldn't find 7 LCBOs back to back on any street. So there really is some recalibrating that we have to do now that this has been in place for a year or two.
Megan.
A couple of city councillors are pushing for a 1-year moratorium on new cannabis retail stores in the city. Councillor Paula Fletcher and Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam will table a motion at City Council this week requesting the Ford government to pause the issuing of new licenses for at least 1 year.
That is when a private member's bill is expected to pass, giving municipalities more say over the location of any new cannabis shops. So what is it like for neighborhoods that have seen more than a few pot shops popping up recently? Let's ask Meg Marshall, Community Manager with the Queen Street West Business Improvement Association. Great to have you back on the show, Meg. What are your thoughts on what these two councillors are presenting here? How concerned are you about the number of pot shops?
So this has been a concern that we've had for quite some time because there's just no municipal jurisdiction in any sort of provisions that can be set out when you see a new license go up in a window. So legally, when somebody applies for a pot shop in a location, they do have to have, they call it a placard that has to go up for a minimum of, I believe it's 14 or 15 days. Residents, neighbors, anyone can write in any sort of concerns that they have. But on a municipal level, there's nothing currently in legislation that allows anything that's brought forward from the municipal government to kind of put any sort of mandates and any sort of provisions in. So similar to what both councillors are requesting, it does make absolute sense. Some neighborhoods have had provisions put in for different liquor licenses. So it just, let's just treat everything equally.
Tell me how bad or not bad the problem is on Queen Street West. How many pot shops are there and how quickly are they popping up, Meg?
So I have some stats that I've taken as of late October, and we currently have 13 pot shops between Bathurst to University. 1 or 2 of them have a coming soon, but have been approved. And anytime we see a vacancy and we see that there's some sort of activity happening in, there's kind of a joke being like, is it another pot shop? And again, we just have no control and no say as to how many can open up shop in our neighborhood. It's right now it's the Wild West. It could be, maybe we'll see another 10 open up this year. We have no idea because there just isn't those legislative provisions put in place that we can help control and make it fair.
And when you say fair, Meg, I wonder about that. I assume when I see businesses popping up for a trend that the ones that survive will be the ones that survive, right? If we give it a year, we'll see which businesses are left standing. Are you concerned that all of these businesses will survive and exist?
There's actually a couple of cannabis shops, one on Queen and in other parts of the city, that have gone up for sale because when licensees have applied for an application to set up a cannabis store, they don't necessarily even know who their competitors are going to be or how many are going to be in their jurisdiction. So it's also not necessarily advantageous to cannabis entrepreneurs because you just don't know how many are going to open up in a short radius around you. So it's really confusing and a bit of a head scratcher why the province hasn't acted sooner on this.
I'm curious, Meg, what fellow business owners are saying to you, those who may be retailers, not pot shop retailers. What are their concerns?
There have been a couple of security and safety concerns that come up because one of the pieces that legally need to happen is you can't be promoting the lifestyle or any of the different products that are necessarily being used with cannabis. So you'll notice that a lot of these storefronts have darkened windows. So, you just kind of wonder from a standpoint of creating vibrancy in a neighborhood, you want to see more artistic things happening. And I do give credit that some cannabis shops have done a really great job working within the legal boundaries of what they need to. But it's still a little bit concerning of what is happening behind the frosted glass windows or behind the dark windows in some circumstances.
So it's too much too fast? Is that the issue? Or is it the actual retail product that's the concern?
I don't think it's the retail product. We are very much an inclusive neighborhood. But I do think just wanting to make sure that we're protecting the vibrancy of the neighborhood, of what's in it, is what's the concern. And so not knowing how many cannabis shops could pop up is questionable. And similar to what Councillor Fletcher has said, you just don't know. You're not going to have, 10 of one retailer, the same retailer back to back, such as the LCBO. So I think there just needs to be more thought and more planning put in. Just like we try to build cities based off of proper policy, I think we need this proper policy for cannabis shops as well.
I guess I wonder, though, Meg, if there are too many, some of them won't survive, right? So should we just let time pass and see which businesses succeed rightfully because they succeeded? Or should we have this government intervention on businesses expanding?
It's a bit of a tough question to ask, because people that are applying for these cannabis licenses, they're also putting in a lot of money, time, resources, finances. So if there was more protocol set out from the get-go, you never know. It might deter some people from maybe not putting so much of their money and resources into it and maybe taking on a different business venture. That's a very strong possibility. And maybe some of the current shops that have opened up may not have opened up if they knew that there were so many and near them and that the competition was potentially going to be so fierce. So there's different angles to look at it, but in a couple of other neighborhoods I work with, there have been some pot shops that have come directly to the BIA to say, like, we didn't know, and we wouldn't have picked this neighborhood if we had known that there were going to be, 4 more within, a 100-meter radius of us.
So that begs my next question, Meg, is there a certain number that you would like to see it capped at? What's that magic number for pot shops in any one neighborhood?
I don't think we can. I think we have to look at each neighborhood differently, but there has to be some parameters and some guidelines to help us kind of figure out what that's, what that adequate number would be per area. I think what we need to look at is, certain guidelines. Is it going to be X? There should be X amount of meters or feet between each pot shop. Should it be at a major intersection or not at a major intersection? Should only 1 or 2 corners of each major intersection be taken up by certain types of retailers, whether it be cannabis or not? I think there definitely is some room and some thought to be given to what type of guidelines and provisions the city may want to have.
And we'll see what happens at City Hall later this week. Meg Marshall from the Queen Street BIA, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.